Before we start, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now in the comments. I always love seeing how this channel brings together people from all over the world, all watching at different moments. All right, let's get into Charvaka philosophy, the most unapologetically grounded, no-nonsense worldview humans have ever put on paper. Charvaka philosophy starts from a brutally simple foundation. The only reality you can trust is what you directly perceive. If you cannot see it, hear it, touch it, taste it, or smell it, you have no solid reason to believe it exists. Everything beyond perception, metaphysics, supernatural claims, karma, reincarnation, cosmic justice, is treated as speculation, storytelling, or social manipulation. Charvaka dismantles entire religious and philosophical systems by applying one standard: show me the evidence. If it's not grounded in observable experience, it doesn't qualify as knowledge. This radical commitment to empiricism makes Charvaka the most uncompromising materialist philosophy in ancient India. Charvaka flips the entire moral landscape by rejecting invisible moral systems. If you tell a Charvaka that their actions will affect their next life, they'll ask you to prove that a next life exists. If you push the idea of cosmic punishment, they'll demand evidence. If you insist the universe has a moral design, they'll ask how anyone could possibly perceive it. For Charvaka, moral systems that depend on unseen realities are tools of control created by priests, politicians, and elites who benefit from people obeying unprovable rules. The only moral guidance that makes sense is the actual consequences of actions on real living humans here and now. Charvaka ethics is about real-world impacts, not supernatural scoreboards. Charvaka philosophy isn't just skepticism. It's a positive claim about what life is. Humans are material beings, part of the natural world, and everything about us, consciousness, emotion, desire, fear, emerges from physical processes. There is no soul separate from the body. When the body dies, consciousness dies with it. Death is not a transition to another plane, it's the end of the individual. This clear rejection of immortality removes fear-based obedience to religious authorities and forces people to focus on the life they actually have. You don't waste time preparing for another world. You engage fully with this one. Pleasure plays a central role in Charvaka philosophy, and not in a shallow way. Instead of treating pleasure as sinful or suspicious, Charvaka sees it as natural, valuable, and meaningful. Humans seek pleasure because pleasure aligns with our biological nature. Denying pleasure doesn't make you noble, it makes you miserable. Of course, Charvaka isn't telling you to be self-destructive. It's not chase pleasure and ignore consequences. It's enjoy life intelligently, because this is the only life you get. Pleasure is not an escape. It's the core of a life lived consciously. Pain, on the other hand, is something to minimize, and wisdom comes from balancing long-term results with immediate experience. Charvaka critiques religious rituals as expensive performances that offer no evidence-based results. The idea of sacrificing wealth, animals, or food to invisible beings makes no sense. You spend resources in the real world to receive a hypothetical benefit in an unproven realm. To the Charvaka thinker, this is delusion at best and exploitation at worst. A system where priests create fear-based stories and then sell the cure. Rituals don't change weather, disease, fate, or cosmic order, because there is no cosmic order to manipulate. Rituals only benefit the people who profit from them. Charvaka also attacks the concept of divine revelation. Sacred texts are written by humans, copied by humans, interpreted by humans. There is no reason to treat them as infallible. If a text makes a claim that contradicts perception or reason, Charvaka treats it as false. If a text demands obedience without evidence, Charvaka sees manipulation. If a text promises rewards after death, Charvaka sees psychological control. This rejection of scriptural authority frees individuals from traditions that restrict pleasure, impose guilt, or justify social hierarchies. The Charvaka approach to knowledge is fundamentally anti-speculation. While other philosophical systems in India build vast metaphysical models about the cosmos, the soul, karma cycles, elemental energies, and universal order, Charvaka dismisses them as intellectual fantasies. Just because a theory is clever or elegant doesn't mean it's true. Without direct evidence, all metaphysics is fiction. This makes Charvaka one of the earliest forms of scientific thinking, not because they had modern science, but because they demanded observable proofs and rejected unfalsifiable ideas.
Charvaka's materialism is radical because it denies anything beyond the physical world. The mind is not separate from the body, it is produced by the body. Love, memory, personality, spirituality, all are physical processes emerging from the organization of matter. There is no soul, no spiritual substance, no reincarnating essence. Consciousness arises from the body like intoxication arises from mixing ingredients. When the physical conditions are right, consciousness appears. When the body stops functioning, consciousness disappears. This eliminates fear of eternal punishment and exposes moral manipulation as a tool based on mythology. Charvaka philosophy empowers personal freedom through clarity. Once you drop belief in invisible forces, you stop living in fear. Once you reject the idea that suffering in this life is punishment for past life actions, you stop accepting injustice as destiny. Once you realize religious elites have no special access to sacred truth, you stop obeying them blindly. Charvaka frees the individual from systems built on guilt, fear, and superstition. It shifts agency back to the person. Your life is your responsibility, not the universe's. Charvaka also exposes social hierarchies as human inventions rather than divine orders. Caste, purity rules, and taboo systems lose their legitimacy when there is no cosmic authority behind them. If gods don't exist, they didn't assign social classes. If karma doesn't exist, nobody deserves their suffering. If souls don't migrate, nobody is spiritually higher or lower. Charvaka undermines the moral foundations of social inequality by rejecting the metaphysics that justify it. The Charvaka worldview keeps returning to a simple yet explosive idea that human life gains meaning not from invisible heavens, but from the unmistakable roar of the present moment. Where others see a delicate bridge between this world and some imagined transcendence, Charvaka sees only a jump into fog. Better to stay on solid ground. Better to taste the fruit while it is ripe than to chase illusions painted by priests, kings, or philosophers who depend on the fear of the masses to maintain their influence. The Charvaka thinker insists that the world is straightforward. What you touch is real, what you hear is real, what you see is real, and everything else is a clever story invented to manipulate behavior. When ancient schools promoted invisible karma, Charvaka laughed. Karma is just a poetic way of saying life is unpredictable and humans desperately want justice. But the universe does not promise justice, nor does it owe anyone an explanation. If someone behaves well and suffers, it does not mean they offended a cosmic accountant. It means life is indifferent to fairness. Charvaka refuses to decorate cruelty with metaphysics. The world is raw, messy, loud, full of pleasure and pain, and our job isn't to explain it away, but to navigate it intelligently, with our eyes open. Charvaka thinkers revel in the idea that the body is not a prison, but a playground. They reject the mournful voices that see desire as a trap. Desire is the very pulse of being alive. Hunger is not a sin, it is a signal. Passion is not a fall, it is the engine of creativity and experience. Instead of seeing the body as a temporary shell that must be overcome to reach some purer state, Charvaka views the body as the source of everything meaningful: love, laughter, sensation, curiosity. Where others try to escape embodied life, Charvaka embraces it with both arms. Charvaka philosophy claims that a person who does not enjoy life has misunderstood the only certainty existence offers. They argue that renouncing pleasure to gain imaginary points in an afterlife is like refusing food in the hope of feasting in a dream. It is pointless, tragic, and absurd. The Charvaka message isn't hedonism without restraint. That's a misunderstanding. It's hedonism with awareness. Avoid pain not because some cosmic rule forbids it, but because pain harms you here and now. Seek pleasure not because pleasure is holy, but because pleasure enriches experience. The world does not come with universal instructions, but it does come with sensations that guide us. Pain is a warning, pleasure is an invitation. Ethics can be born from this simple logic. Charvaka thinkers distrust any authority that claims access to unseen truths. Priests who say they speak for gods, politicians who say they rule by divine mandate, philosophers who build metaphysical castles out of language, all are viewed as performers weaving illusions. For Charvaka, truth must be verifiable by the senses. If you cannot touch it, hear it, see it, taste it, or smell it, then it is speculation disguised as knowledge. There may be realities beyond what we perceive, but unless they interact with the senses, they remain irrelevant to how we should conduct our lives. A bird might be flying above the clouds, but if you cannot see it or hear it, its existence has no impact on the decisions you make now.
The Charvaka school often felt like an uninvited guest at the philosophical table of ancient India. While the other schools debated the subtle mechanisms of karma, moksha, dharma, and the self, Charvaka simply asked, "How do you know any of this is real?" The question was considered rude, impious, even dangerous. But that was precisely the point. Philosophy should provoke, disturb, force clarity. The moment a belief system becomes sacred and untouchable, Charvaka aims directly at it. They take the hammer to the pedestal. They strip away the mystical decoration and ask whether anything remains once the poetry is removed. Charvaka thinkers argue that even suffering should be understood here and now, not hidden behind metaphysical explanations. If someone is poor, it is not because of sins in a past life. It is because of social structures, scarcity, misfortune, or exploitation. If someone is wealthy, it is not because they were virtuous in a previous incarnation, but because the world is uneven. Karma is a narrative invented by those in power to justify hierarchy without taking responsibility. It transforms injustice into destiny, cruelty into cosmic order. Charvaka cuts through this by insisting that every form of inequality should be explained materially, never spiritually. This is why the Charvaka worldview remains rebellious even today. It liberates people from inherited guilt, inherited fear, and inherited submission. People do not live under the shadow of invisible judges. They live in a world shaped by choices, circumstances, and chance. Freedom arises not from rituals, but from understanding the limits of the world. To know that there is no cosmic punishment is to realize that morality must be built by humans through empathy and cooperation, not imposed from above through dogma. Charvaka thinkers see nature as the ultimate teacher. Fire burns not because a god commands it, but because of its material properties. Rivers flow not because they are alive or holy, but because of gravity. Illness happens not because of curses, but because of biological processes. When we understand this, we stop treating misfortune as divine communication. We look for real causes and real solutions. We pursue medicine instead of magic, logic instead of ritual. To understand the world is to stop fearing it. Charvaka does not try to give life a grand cosmic meaning. It argues that life is meaningful because you are experiencing it. Meaning is not discovered, it is created through action, relationships, accomplishment, pleasure, curiosity, and self-awareness.
To search for an external purpose imposed by gods or fate is, in their eyes, to outsource your agency. No one else, not priest, prophet, nor philosopher, should define your purpose. You are the author of your own meaning. Charvaka thinkers appreciate humor as a philosophical tool. They mock the seriousness with which other systems cling to their certainties. They see comedy as a form of truth-telling. Laughing at the world breaks the spell of fear. It exposes the absurdity of rituals performed without understanding. It reveals the fragility of beliefs held only because everyone else pretends to believe them. To laugh is to reclaim power from those who rely on intimidation and solemnity to maintain authority. Charvaka also challenges the idea of the immortal soul. They argue that consciousness arises from the body like sweetness arises from sugar. When the body dissolves, consciousness dissolves with it. There is no ghost that floats away, no spiritual residue that continues. Death is not a doorway, but a disappearance. And rather than depressing, Charvaka finds it liberating. The finality of death intensifies the value of life. If this is your only existence, each moment becomes precious. Each experience becomes irreplaceable. Immortality cheapens life. Mortality enriches it. Charvaka thought turns its gaze toward the world with a kind of radical honesty that refuses to flinch. Instead of dressing reality in symbolic garments or spiritual metaphors, it prefers to keep the world naked, raw, unapologetic. It teaches that the universe does not whisper secret messages, nor does it hide a deeper meaning beneath its surface. The meaning is the surface. The experience itself is the message. Pleasure communicates its own logic, pain its own warning, and the world does not need a celestial interpreter to decode it. The most authentic life is one lived without pretending that mystery is automatically profundity. Where other traditions find comfort in imagining cosmic order, Charvaka finds power in acknowledging cosmic indifference. The stars do not watch you. They do not keep score. They do not bless or curse. They simply exist, brilliant and unreachable, indifferent to human hope or suffering. Some might find this unnerving. The Charvaka mind finds it liberating. If no cosmic force dictates your destiny, then destiny becomes your own creation. You are not trapped in some divine narrative with predetermined chapters. You are writing the story as you go, with no authority to answer to except the evidence of your senses and the clarity of your thought.
Charvaka challenges the romanticization of suffering that appears in many ascetic philosophies. It rejects the idea that enduring pain makes a person noble or spiritually elevated. To them, pain is not a virtue, it is a problem. Suffering is not a sacred ritual, it is something to avoid whenever possible. They argue that glorifying suffering is a manipulation used by religious institutions to maintain control. When people are told that enduring hardship makes them closer to salvation, they tolerate exploitation more easily. Charvaka pulls the curtain away from this illusion and insists that reducing suffering is inherently good, not because a god demands it, but because the body and mind flourish when free from unnecessary torment. Even in ethics, Charvaka prefers clarity to ambiguity. Ethics isn't a system handed down from above. It is a negotiation between individuals who share a common world. If your actions harm others, those others will retaliate or withdraw cooperation, making your life harder. If you help others, they are more likely to help you in return. This is not sacred morality, it is social logic. Charvaka ethics is built on reciprocity rather than revelation. There is nothing mystical about being good, it is simply smart. Civilization thrives not because of commandments etched in stone, but because people recognize that cooperation benefits everyone. The Charvaka rejection of inferential knowledge, the idea that you can claim truth about things you cannot experience directly, is one of its most provocative stances.
Other philosophies built grand theories of invisible substances, eternal souls, karmic engines, cosmic cycles, metaphysical laws. Charvaka simply asked them to show their evidence, not the evidence of texts, not the evidence of tradition, not the evidence of logical speculation, but sensory evidence. If something cannot be observed in any form, why believe in it? The world offers enough real mysteries without inventing new ones. The Charvaka approach filters truth through the simplest but most reliable mechanism humans possess, the senses. Charvaka did not deny that one can make reasonable assumptions about the world. Of course, fire burns even when you're not touching it. But they warned against the human tendency to leap from modest inferences to grand metaphysical frameworks. It is one thing to believe that smoke indicates fire. It is another thing entirely to believe that invisible lifetimes stretch behind and ahead of us based on stories with no sensory anchor. Belief, in their view, must remain tethered to the real. The moment it floats free, it becomes myth. Charvaka thinkers saw religion as a form of theater and priests as actors who never break character. Rituals became performances, sacred texts became scripts, and gods became characters written into the cultural imagination. But unlike theater, religion claims that the drama is real. Charvaka strips away the performance and exposes the emptiness behind it, not to mock people, but to free them from manipulation. A ritual may feel meaningful, but that does not make it effective. A prayer may be comforting, but comfort is not evidence. The Charvaka attitude is not hostile to emotion, it is hostile to pretending emotion is proof. Despite their skepticism, Charvaka thinkers are not cold rationalists. They value joy, laughter, friendship, passion, and the warmth of human connection. They celebrate wine and conversation, music and sensuality, humor and storytelling. They believe a full life is one filled with richness of experience, not self-denial. Their skepticism does not kill wonder, it purifies it. Wonder becomes grounded, not in fantasy, but in the staggering beauty of the physical world, the taste of a ripe fruit, the rhythm of a festival drum, the glow of a sunset, the intellect sparking during debate. These sensations are not illusions, they are the most authentic experiences humanity can access. Charvaka refuses to treat death as a gateway. Death is simply the end of sensation. That is why life must be savored while it lasts. The finality of death does not frighten the Charvaka thinker, it anchors them. It reminds them not to postpone joy for a future that may never come. To delay living for an afterlife is the ultimate tragedy. Better to eat the bread while it is warm, drink the wine while it is sweet, and speak your truth while you still have breath. Mortality is not a curse, it is the fire that fuels urgency, creativity, and gratitude. To Charvaka, the world is not a riddle to decode, but a feast to experience. Existence is not a test, but an opportunity. The body is not an obstacle, but a gateway. The senses are not deceptions, but guides. And truth is not hidden in sacred caves or celestial realms. It is right here, in the tangible world, waiting to be observed, understood, and enjoyed.
Charvaka's materialism becomes even more radical when you realize it isn't just denying supernatural claims, it's denying the entire psychological architecture that depends on them. Most societies operate on invisible incentives: fear of punishment after death, hope of reward after death, belief in karma balancing the moral books, belief in cosmic justice eventually revealing itself. Charvaka wipes all of that away in one move. If no invisible judge exists, then morality cannot rely on fear. If no karmic scoreboard exists, then justice cannot rely on cosmic bookkeeping. The entire emotional structure that religions use to shape behavior collapses. What's left is the raw negotiation between people, the push and pull of real consequences in real time. This forces morality to grow up. Instead of fantasizing about divine fairness, humans must create fairness themselves, or admit they don't care about it. Charvaka exposes the uncomfortable truth. If justice is going to exist, it must be a human project, not a metaphysical one. This is why Charvaka philosophy feels unusually modern, even though it is one of the oldest materialist traditions on the planet. It treats human beings as rational animals who can build systems through cooperation, reason, and shared interest. It doesn't appeal to fate or destiny or cosmic purpose to explain society. It recognizes that communities form because individuals seek protection, resources, companionship, and stability. Humanity invents its ethics because it wants to avoid chaos, not because the gods hand down rules. Take away divine commands, and what remains is the pragmatic logic of coexistence. People avoid harming each other because the consequences are inconvenient. People help each other because cooperation makes life easier. Charvaka ethics is not cold, it's efficient. It removes guilt from the equation and replaces it with clarity. You don't need to be a saint, and you don't need to be a martyr. You just need to understand cause and effect. The Charvaka view of desire is equally refreshing. Unlike traditions that treat desire as a distraction, impurity, or spiritual poison, Charvaka embraces desire as a central part of the human experience. Wanting things does not make you weak, it makes you human. Hunger for pleasure, success, beauty, comfort, connection, these desires drive creativity, ambition, and progress. Civilizations are built by people who want things, better tools, better food, better homes, better lives. Suppressing desire for the sake of purity is, to Charvaka, a form of psychological self-harm. It trains people to view their natural instincts as sinful and their pleasures as shameful. Charvaka flips this script. The only immoral pleasure is the one that harms others or destroys your future. Everything else is part of the joy of being alive. Charvaka's attack on asceticism is not just philosophical, it is political. Ascetic traditions often teach people to endure suffering quietly, to accept their social roles, to give up ambition, and to place hope in spiritual rewards rather than material improvements. This makes populations easier to control. If you convince people that spiritual purity comes from rejecting pleasure, you can justify their poverty as a virtue. If you convince them that suffering elevates the soul, you can justify their exploitation as a spiritual opportunity. Charvaka sees through this manipulation instantly. It argues that spiritual idealism often benefits the ruling class and harms everyone else. People who are told to embrace poverty rarely include the ones issuing the instructions. Charvaka encourages individuals to question who benefits from doctrines that discourage pleasure, wealth, and ambition. If a moral system keeps you obedient, quiet, and suffering, maybe it's not morality, maybe it's a tool of power. Another powerful aspect of Charvaka thought is its critique of rituals. Rituals, they argue, are expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally manipulative. Priests often claim that rituals can affect invisible realms, heal the soul, cleanse karma, attract divine blessing, but cannot demonstrate these effects in the real world. In practice, rituals serve to maintain authority structures and establish dependence on religious intermediaries. Charvaka challenges this entire system by reducing rituals to their observable outcomes. Does the ritual change the world in any measurable way? If not, then it's a theatrical performance disguised as cosmic technology. This is not an attack on culture, it is an attack on deception. If rituals are performed for cultural bonding, entertainment, tradition, or emotional comfort, Charvaka has no problem with that. But when rituals are sold as literal mechanisms for influencing invisible realities, the philosophy calls it a scam.
Charvaka's approach to knowledge pushes skepticism into territory many other ancient traditions avoided. They argue that human beings must remain aware of how easily the mind is fooled. The senses can be mistaken, but they are still the most trustworthy tools we have. Logic can be powerful, but it can also drift into abstraction detached from reality. Texts can be inspiring, but they can also be wrong. Teachers can be wise, but they can also be liars. Reverence is the enemy of truth. Charvaka doesn't tell you to distrust everything. It tells you to stop trusting things just because someone claims authority. Knowledge must be verified by direct experience or grounded in obvious, observable reality. Otherwise, it is speculation pretending to be fact. This skepticism toward grand metaphysical systems also makes Charvaka immune to the fear that grips many philosophical traditions, the fear of meaninglessness. Most philosophies invent cosmic narratives because they're afraid of a universe without a script. Charvaka is not afraid. Meaninglessness is not a threat, it is a blank page. If the universe has no built-in purpose, then purpose is something you create, not something you discover. Life becomes a creative project rather than a spiritual exam. This reframing removes the existential anxiety that other traditions try to escape through mythology. Charvaka replaces cosmic purpose with personal agency. You don't need the universe to endorse your choices. You decide what matters. That is enough. Charvaka pushes this even further by stripping away the psychological comfort that people borrow from destiny. Destiny is one of the most powerful illusions because it feeds two deep emotional cravings, the desire for control and the desire for reassurance. If everything is predetermined, then you never truly fail, you simply fulfill your fate. If everything happens for a reason, then suffering becomes more bearable because it feels meaningful. But Charvaka sees destiny as a trap that removes responsibility from your hands and places it in the hands of imaginary cosmic forces. Once destiny is removed, you are forced to confront the raw truth that your decisions, your actions, your habits, and your environment shape your life. This is uncomfortable, but it's also empowering. If no invisible script controls you, then you can rewrite your story anytime you choose. The Charvaka view of freedom doesn't require divine permission, it requires courage. Their philosophy also challenges the sacredness of authority. Many traditions in history place philosophers, priests, gurus, kings, and ancestors on pedestals, granting them unquestionable legitimacy. Charvaka rejects all of it. Authority is not a source of truth. Tradition is not proof. Antiquity is not evidence. Something does not become true just because people have believed it for 1,000 years. Truth is not democratic. It does not care how many people vote for it. Charvaka encourages individuals to push back against the psychological habit of assuming that age equals wisdom. Old ideas must be tested just like new ones. Some ancient teachings may be brilliant, but the ones that fail contact with reality should be discarded without guilt. This represents a level of intellectual independence most societies still struggle to reach today. Charvaka also strips away the sacredness of self-denial. In many cultures, the ability to endure discomfort is seen as morally impressive. People admire those who fast, those who renounce, those who withdraw from the world. Charvaka turns the question around. What is the point of gaining moral admiration if you lose the joy of living? If someone sacrifices happiness to gain spiritual prestige, Charvaka suggests they have been manipulated into valuing reputation over experience. The philosophy exposes how people sometimes use suffering as a currency to buy respect. But respect that requires self-punishment is worthless. Charvaka teaches that there is no virtue in rejecting what the body naturally needs. Hunger, desire, rest, companionship, pleasure. These are not obstacles to enlightenment. They are the raw materials of a meaningful life. When discussing pleasure, Charvaka doesn't encourage reckless indulgence, it encourages realistic pleasure. A smart life seeks enjoyment that does not destroy future enjoyment. Pleasure must be strategic, not self-destructive. Eat well, but don't ruin your health. Seek entertainment, but don't sabotage your responsibilities. Enjoy intimacy, but don't break trust. Charvaka's focus on pleasure is often misunderstood as hedonism in the sense of impulsive gratification, but it's actually a disciplined philosophy of maximizing long-term satisfaction. A person who chases only immediate pleasure becomes a slave to impulses. A person who understands the logic of pleasure becomes free. Charvaka encourages a conscious, intelligent relationship with desire, not blind consumption.
Another crucial part of the philosophy is its treatment of community. Contrary to critics who accuse Charvaka of being selfish, the system actually promotes strong cooperative societies. When people base their actions on real consequences instead of fear of divine punishment, they often behave more consistently. You help your neighbor not because the gods will bless you, but because your neighbor is a real human who will appreciate the help and may return the favor. This makes ethics personal and relational instead of cosmic and abstract. In a Charvaka society, morality becomes a shared project built on mutual interest. People don't rely on invisible forces to create harmony. They create harmony themselves through dialogue, negotiation, and common sense. Charvaka also challenges the world's obsession with perfection. Most spiritual systems create an ideal version of a human, pure, detached, serene, selfless, enlightened. This ideal human is often impossible to become, and striving for it creates guilt, shame, and frustration. Charvaka rejects perfection altogether. Humans are flawed, emotional, inconsistent, hungry, curious, desirous creatures, and that's fine. The goal is not to become perfect, but to become authentic. The Charvaka mindset values honesty over purity. Instead of trying to eliminate your impulses, it tells you to understand them. Instead of suppressing emotions, it encourages you to navigate them with awareness. Instead of trying to reach some mystical state of detachment, it teaches you to fully engage with the world as it actually is. Charvaka is also refreshingly blunt about the limitations of the human mind. It doesn't glorify intuition, nor does it trust reasoning that spirals away from sensory evidence. It acknowledges that humans are prone to believing what they want to believe, hearing what they want to hear, and weaving stories that comfort them. Its antidote to this isn't cynicism, it's intellectual discipline. Stick to what can be known. Stay grounded. Don't let imagination dress itself up as revelation. Don't let fear disguise itself as wisdom. Don't let hope turn into delusion. Charvaka brings you back to earth again and again, reminding you that truth is found in experience, not wishful thinking. This realism extends to their views of the body. Instead of treating a body as a prison or a sinful container for a soul, Charvaka treats it as the central reality of existence. Without the body, there is no self, no perception, no thought, no experience. The body is not inferior to the mind. It is the foundation. Every emotion, every memory, every idea is dependent on the physical processes of a living organism. This is a radical stance in a world filled with spiritual teachings that glorify the soul and demonize the flesh. Charvaka doesn't divide humans into spiritual and physical parts. It unifies them. Your identity is the continuity of your body and mind working together. You are a being made of matter, and that is not a downgrade. It is an honest description of what you are. Charvaka's materialism also dissolves the idea of cosmic surveillance. In many cultures, people behave morally because they believe someone is always watching, a god, a spirit, ancestors, karma, or the universe itself. This invisible audience becomes a psychological leash. It regulates behavior through fear, guilt, and the desire to appear righteous to a supernatural observer. Charvaka cuts this leash. If no one is watching you from the sky, then your actions are free from invisible judgment. This doesn't mean you become reckless. It means your decisions now rest entirely on real-world consequences. You are accountable only to yourself and the people around you, not to imaginary overseers. This kind of freedom is uncomfortable for some because it eliminates excuses. You cannot hide behind fate or divine plan. Your choices belong to you, fully and without escape. For Charvaka, this is not a burden, it is adulthood. This philosophy also strips away the illusion that suffering always teaches lessons. Many traditions romanticize hardship, telling people that every pain is meaningful, every loss is a spiritual message, every difficulty is a destiny shaping you. Charvaka rejects this psychological sugarcoating. Sometimes suffering teaches nothing. Sometimes pain is just pain. Sometimes a bad thing happens and there is no hidden message behind it. By accepting this, Charvaka removes the pressure to find cosmic meaning in tragedy. You don't have to pretend that misfortune is a gift. You don't have to interpret pain as a lesson written by the universe. Instead, you acknowledge the reality, respond practically, and move forward. There is no betrayal in admitting that some things are simply unfortunate. This honesty protects people from being manipulated by ideologies that exploit guilt and grief for spiritual control.
Charvaka also stands out for its approach to knowledge transmission. While other traditions rely heavily on scripture and claims of divine revelation, Charvaka treats texts as human artifacts. They can contain wisdom, but they can also contain nonsense, bias, superstition, and political propaganda. A statement in a holy book is worth no more than a statement written on a piece of bark, unless it can be verified through experience. Charvaka essentially demands peer review from reality itself. If an idea cannot be demonstrated or supported through some interaction with the world, then it belongs in the category of stories, not truths. This is an intellectual filter that automatically eliminates thousands of supernatural doctrines, rituals, and dogmas. Instead of being impressed by mystical claims, Charvaka asks the simplest question: can you show me? It is a philosophy that forces every belief to earn its place. Charvaka is equally skeptical of metaphysical comfort that promises safety. Concepts like a soul, reincarnation, divine protection, or cosmic justice often act as psychological armor against fear. They reduce anxiety by suggesting that the universe is humane and morally structured. Charvaka exposes this for what it is: wishful thinking dressed as metaphysics. It argues that comfort does not make a belief true. The universe is not obligated to make sense or be kind simply because humans prefer it that way. The truth might be uncomfortable, but discomfort is better than delusion. By refusing to invent invisible safety nets, Charvaka trains people to rely on their own strength, relationships, and intelligence instead of supernatural assurances. The philosophy also challenges the nobility of renunciation, which many spiritual teachers use to legitimize poverty and suffering. Renouncing wealth, pleasure, or ambition is presented as a moral achievement. But Charvaka asks a simple question: who benefits when people give up their desires? Often it is the powerful, who face less resistance from populations conditioned to accept misery as virtue. Charvaka sees renunciation not as enlightenment, but as a strategy that keeps people docile. Instead, it encourages individuals to pursue prosperity, comfort, and enjoyment, not recklessly, but realistically. Ambition is not corruption, it is the fuel of progress. Wealth is not sin, it is a tool. Pleasure is not impurity, it is a natural part of living. A society that celebrates healthy desire will innovate, create, build, and improve. A society that shames desire stagnates. Charvaka also redefines spirituality by removing the supernatural from it. To them, spirituality is simply an elevated form of living, being fully present, fully alive, and fully engaged with the world. You don't need gods, rituals, or sacred texts to experience awe. You can find it in nature, art, love, humor, conversation, and achievement. The numinous doesn't vanish just because the supernatural is dismissed.
It becomes grounded in reality. The feeling of watching the ocean, hearing music, or holding someone you care about does not require metaphysics. Charvaka spirituality is the spirituality of the real, not the imagined. Their philosophy also clarifies what freedom actually means. In many traditions, freedom is the ability to transcend desire, transcend the world, transcend the body. Charvaka rejects this escapist definition. You are not free when you run away from the world. You are free when you engage with it without fear or illusion. Real freedom is understanding your desires rather than being ashamed of them. Real freedom is knowing that your life is not being judged by an invisible authority. Real freedom is shaping your own meaning and your own path. Real freedom is accepting your mortality and still living fully. Charvaka transforms freedom from a mystical ideal to a practical, daily experience. Even their view of death reflects this pragmatic clarity. Without belief in an afterlife, death is simply the end of consciousness. To many people, this is terrifying, but Charvaka turns it into a reason to live more deeply. If life is temporary, then wasting it on guilt, renunciation, fear, and superstition is foolish. If your existence is finite, then every moment becomes valuable. Time becomes the most precious resource. Instead of promising eternal life, Charvaka promises something arguably more meaningful: intensity. The intensity of living deliberately, choosing consciously, enjoying responsibly, loving genuinely, and thinking independently. Death is not a doorway, it is a deadline, and deadlines create urgency. Charvaka ultimately offers a world without illusions, but not a world without joy. Without cosmic narratives, you create your own story. Without divine law, you create your own ethics. Without destiny, you create your own future. Without afterlife promises, you create a life worth living now. It is a philosophy that hands the world back to you and says, it's yours, not the gods, not the priests, not the astrologers, not the traditions, yours. And that ownership is what makes Charvaka one of the most liberating systems ever conceived.
Charvaka insists that humans must treat the present as the only reliable reality. The world is not a puzzle waiting for mystical answers. It is a series of interactions, sensations, and experiences that can be observed and understood. When a person touches fire, they feel heat. When they drink water, they experience refreshment. When they see a fruit ripen, they know its sweetness is real. These concrete experiences form the foundation of knowledge. Nothing else, no afterlife, no karma, no astral plane, can offer evidence that matters. Charvaka turns philosophy into an empirical exercise: observe, verify, act. Anything outside the senses is speculation, and speculation is a luxury, not a guide. The philosophy also teaches that happiness is not a byproduct of virtue or obedience to cosmic law. It is an outcome of understanding reality and acting accordingly. Pleasure, comfort, and satisfaction are not sinful. They are indicators that life is being engaged intelligently. Charvaka warns against deferring joy for an imaginary future. There is no cosmic accountant that tallies your merits, no ethereal courtroom that will deliver justice for your sacrifices. Every choice, every action, every pleasure and pain occurs in this lifetime and nowhere else. Therefore, living wisely, fully, and attentively is not indulgence, it is necessity. Charvaka's critique of metaphysical claims extends to language and thought. Words are tools, but they can mislead. When someone claims that a soul exists or that karmic forces are balancing unseen scales, they are using language to create illusions. Charvaka urges constant vigilance. Understand how words can be used to manipulate beliefs. Philosophical clarity is built on grounding claims in observable reality. If a proposition cannot be tested through experience, it is unreliable. By cutting through abstract speculation, Charvaka frees the mind to focus on what truly matters: the tangible consequences of action, the richness of experience, and the pursuit of well-being.
Another core idea is that ethics does not require divine authority. Right and wrong can emerge from observation of cause and effect, from understanding human needs, and from cooperation. Harm is harmful because it produces consequences here and now, not because it offends gods. Kindness is valuable because it enhances relationships and increases the probability of mutual support, not because it earns spiritual credit. This pragmatic ethics emphasizes responsibility, foresight, and empathy without invoking invisible forces. The morality that Charvaka describes is fully human, fully immediate, and fully actionable. Charvaka also redefines the meaning of courage. True courage is not waiting for divine reward or fearing eternal punishment. It is facing the world as it is, with its unpredictability and indifference, and making decisions that maximize survival, satisfaction, and joy. Courage comes from understanding that life is finite, that the senses are your tools, that the body is the vessel of all experience, and that the mind is not eternal. By accepting these truths, one can act boldly, without illusions, without hesitation, and without reliance on external validation. Charvaka's materialism extends to all aspects of existence. Pleasure, pain, consciousness, emotion, and thought are emergent from physical processes. There is no invisible substratum, no eternal essence. The body is the source of life, and its processes are sufficient to explain consciousness. Death is final. Consciousness ceases. Yet this finality is empowering, not depressing. Knowing that life ends sharpens perception, clarifies priorities, and elevates the importance of experience. Mortality makes sensation urgent, and urgency gives life intensity. Charvaka is not fatalistic. It is deeply engaged with the immediacy of living. Charvaka's perspective on desire is revolutionary because it treats wants as signals rather than sins. Hunger is the body telling you to sustain itself. Curiosity is the mind seeking knowledge. Passion is the engine of creativity. Pursuing these desires intelligently is not indulgence. It is understanding how to live fully. The philosophy discourages self-destruction, but encourages conscious pursuit of satisfaction. Restraint is only valuable when it enhances future well-being, not when imposed by moral dogma or fear of supernatural punishment. The philosophy also attacks institutional control over knowledge and behavior. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often used metaphysical claims to consolidate power, regulate communities, and justify inequality. Charvaka exposes these tactics, showing that many doctrines are instruments of social control disguised as sacred wisdom. Rejecting these claims is not rebellion for its own sake. It is liberation from manipulation. By prioritizing observable reality and human experience, Charvaka restores agency to individuals. People are free to reason, choose, and pursue their own well-being without interference from imagined authorities.
Charvaka's worldview demands honesty with oneself. It rejects pretense, denial, and magical thinking. The philosophy teaches that to live fully, one must confront reality. There is no cosmic purpose, no afterlife, no hidden justice, no divine oversight. Life is finite, bodies are mortal, and consciousness ends with death. These truths are not frightening, they are motivating. They force individuals to take ownership of every moment, to act responsibly, and to seek fulfillment through tangible experiences, relationships, and achievements. Charvaka turns the apparent bleakness of mortality into a call to live fully. The philosophy is not merely analytical, it celebrates life's richness. Joy, humor, friendship, creativity, music, art, love, and intellectual engagement are all central to Charvaka's vision. The absence of supernatural guarantees does not diminish wonder, it refocuses it. A sunset, the taste of food, the sound of music, the thrill of discovery, these are not symbols or illusions, but real phenomena. Experiencing them deeply, without guilt or superstition, is the ultimate affirmation of life, according to Charvaka. Charvaka ultimately advocates for radical clarity and pragmatic living. Knowledge comes from observation. Ethics emerges from human interaction. Pleasure is natural and to be pursued wisely. Pain is a guide to avoid harm. Death is the end. Authority is not proof. Belief is valid only when verified. Life is finite, intense, and precious. There is no cosmic oversight, but there is the human capacity to reason, to feel, and to act. The philosophy strips life to its essentials and presents a world without illusions, yet filled with opportunity, sensation, and agency. Charvaka emphasizes that human beings must rely on their own reasoning rather than inherited beliefs. Most traditions tell people what to believe, often backed by authority, sacred texts, or social pressure. Charvaka challenges this by insisting that beliefs must be tested against reality. If something cannot be experienced or verified, it cannot guide action reliably. This approach encourages skepticism, critical thinking, and independence of mind. It liberates individuals from dogma and superstition, replacing blind faith with evidence-based judgment. To think for oneself becomes not only a right, but a duty, because one cannot trust invisible forces or distant authorities to direct one's life wisely. The philosophy treats desire and sensory experience as natural guides, not temptations to be suppressed. The body signals needs and opportunities, hunger, thirst, curiosity, attraction, pleasure, and ignoring these signals is foolish. Yet Charvaka stresses moderation and awareness. The philosophy is not reckless indulgence, it is rational enjoyment. Pursue pleasure where it benefits life, avoid harm where it threatens it, and recognize the consequences of choices. This balance between embracing desire and considering outcomes forms a practical ethic rooted in human reality rather than spiritual abstraction. Life is to be experienced fully, but wisely, with consequences in mind. Charvaka also critiques fear-based moral systems. Societies often regulate behavior through threats of supernatural punishment or promises of future reward. Charvaka dismantles this by demonstrating that morality should be grounded in direct human consequences, not in imagined cosmic justice. Harm leads to suffering, cooperation produces benefit, and these observable outcomes are sufficient guidance. Ethics in this framework becomes a rational, secular endeavor. One helps others not for divine reward, but because it improves life here and now. One avoids harm not because it offends gods, but because it produces pain or conflict in reality. This is a radical shift from metaphysical to materialist morality. The philosophy rejects mystical explanations for natural phenomena. Fire burns because of heat. Rivers flow because of gravity. Disease spreads due to physical causes, not divine will or karmic decree. Charvaka teaches observation and reasoning as the only reliable tools to understand the world. Myths and supernatural claims may entertain or inspire, but they cannot guide action effectively. Knowledge is practical, grounded, and tangible. This focus on reality allows individuals to act strategically, reduce suffering, and enhance pleasure. Charvaka transforms understanding into a tool for living, not a system for spiritual speculation. Death is approached with clarity rather than fear. Charvaka denies reincarnation, immortal souls, or posthumous reward or punishment. Consciousness arises from the body and ceases when the body dies. While this might seem stark, it instills urgency and appreciation for life. Each experience becomes more valuable because it is finite. Life gains intensity precisely because it ends. Charvaka transforms mortality into a motivating force, encouraging individuals to act fully, live boldly, and seek meaningful experiences without deferring them to an imagined afterlife. Charvaka's materialism extends to knowledge, ethics, and lifestyle. All phenomena, including consciousness, emotion, and thought, are products of physical processes. Ethics emerges from human interaction, grounded in observable consequences. Lifestyle should prioritize intelligent enjoyment, minimizing pain and maximizing pleasure. Rituals and metaphysical doctrines are rejected unless they produce tangible benefit. Authority and tradition are questioned. Beliefs must be earned through evidence. This philosophy promotes a life fully engaged with reality, free from fear, superstition, and manipulation.
The philosophy also encourages independence from social pressures and inherited beliefs. By refusing to accept unverifiable claims, individuals learn to rely on personal judgment and direct experience. They develop critical thinking, self-reliance, and resilience. Social influence is not ignored, but it is evaluated against reality. Charvaka empowers individuals to navigate life using observation, reasoning, and practical experience rather than blind conformity. Freedom is defined not by the absence of constraints, but by the capacity to act wisely within reality's bounds. Charvaka teaches that pleasure, joy, and creativity are essential aspects of human existence. Engagement with music, art, friendship, love, and intellectual pursuit enriches life. These experiences are valuable because they are real, accessible, and enhance well-being. They require no metaphysical justification. Happiness is not deferred to another world, it is created in the present. By prioritizing lived experience over imagined reward or punishment, Charvaka provides a philosophy of immediacy, intensity, and authenticity. The philosophy's critique of supernatural authority, cosmic justice, and ritualism is radical. It exposes the ways institutions can manipulate fear and hope to maintain control. Charvaka encourages skepticism, intellectual independence, and reliance on evidence. It recognizes the human capacity for reason and self-directed action. By doing so, it reclaims agency, restoring the power to live, act, and enjoy life fully to the individual. The world is finite, indifferent, and real. The mind is mortal, the body is central, and knowledge is sensory. Within this framework, Charvaka creates a philosophy that is liberating, practical, and profoundly human. Charvaka insists that humans confront the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. The universe does not operate on moral laws, divine intentions, or hidden purposes. Events occur because of natural causes and consequences. Recognizing this, one becomes responsible for interpreting outcomes correctly and acting to maximize well-being. There is no magical correction for injustice, no cosmic consolation for misfortune, no karmic balance sheet to reward patience or punish cruelty. Life is immediate, finite, and real. This stark realism is not despairing, it is empowering. It removes illusion, forces clarity, and allows humans to act decisively in shaping their own lives. Pleasure is central in Charvaka philosophy, but it is disciplined and rational. The philosophy distinguishes between fleeting indulgence and sustainable satisfaction. Eating, drinking, intimacy, artistic enjoyment, and intellectual engagement are all part of a life lived fully. Yet Charvaka stresses that pursuit of pleasure should not produce greater harm. Recklessness, self-destruction, or harm to others undermines well-being and therefore violates the rational ethic of pleasure. In this sense, Charvaka merges hedonism with prudence, creating a philosophy that celebrates enjoyment while embedding it in reason and foresight. The philosophy also emphasizes critical thinking over received wisdom. Priests, ascetics, and teachers may offer guidance, but Charvaka evaluates all claims against experience.
Tradition is informative, but not authoritative. Belief requires evidence. This cultivates intellectual independence. Individuals are encouraged to question rituals, scripture, and dogma, examining whether they produce observable effects or merely reinforce authority. Knowledge becomes a tool for practical life, rather than a vehicle for controlling fear, reinforcing hierarchy, or promising supernatural reward. Charvaka turns thinking into a form of freedom. Death is final, consciousness is temporary, and the self is a product of the body. While other traditions might cloak this in fear, Charvaka views it as liberation. Mortality highlights the value of each moment, encourages presence, and motivates action. Life's intensity comes from its finitude. There is no eternal soul to save, no afterlife to prepare for, no divine judgment to fear. Therefore, living deliberately, appreciating sensory experiences, and cultivating relationships and knowledge is the only meaningful path. Charvaka transforms existential finality into vitality. Ethics arises naturally from observation of cause and effect. Harm produces suffering, cooperation produces benefit, and these outcomes guide behavior. There is no need for supernatural commandments or cosmic enforcement. Morality is pragmatic, relational, and grounded in the human experience. Helping others is advantageous because it strengthens social bonds. Avoiding harm is wise because it reduces conflict. This rational morality is flexible, context-sensitive, and entirely dependent on observable consequences rather than imagined punishment or reward. Charvaka replaces metaphysical morality with practical ethics. The body is central to Charvaka thought. Physical processes generate thought, sensation, and emotion. The body is not a prison for the soul. It is the foundation of life. All consciousness, perception, and identity emerge from it. Charvaka rejects dualism between body and mind. By grounding experience in the material, the philosophy promotes respect for the body's needs, desires, and health. Physical pleasure is natural. Pain is a signal to avoid harm. The body is both the instrument and the medium of living fully. Proper care, engagement, and responsiveness to bodily signals are essential to rational flourishing.
Charvaka attacks fear-based control and the glorification of suffering. Asceticism, deprivation, and ritualized hardship are often tools to enforce obedience and maintain social or religious hierarchies. Charvaka exposes these as manipulative. Suffering is not inherently noble. Deprivation is not morally superior. Rituals are only valuable if they produce tangible benefit. By rejecting imposed suffering and embracing rational pursuit of pleasure and well-being, individuals reclaim agency over their lives. Happiness is not deferred or conditional. It is cultivated through conscious engagement with the tangible world. The philosophy is also profoundly egalitarian in its epistemology. Truth is not bound to status, age, or authority. Priests, kings, and scholars are not automatically right. Their claims are subject to verification. Evidence, observation, and logic are the sole arbiters of validity. Charvaka fosters a culture of intellectual independence where anyone who observes accurately and reasons correctly can contribute to understanding. This empowers individuals to challenge orthodoxy, resist manipulation, and pursue personal and collective well-being. Charvaka's materialism and empiricism provide a framework for practical living. Observation, reasoning, and evidence guide decisions. Pleasure and pain inform choices. Mortality motivates intensity. Relationships, cooperation, and ethical action emerge from tangible consequences. Fear of supernatural forces is irrelevant. Adherence to dogma is optional. Knowledge, morality, and happiness are human projects, created and maintained through engagement with the real world. The philosophy is uncompromising in clarity, liberating in scope, and deeply human in its focus on life, experience, and agency. Charvaka also emphasizes the primacy of experience over speculation. Most philosophies build castles in the sky, elaborate metaphysical systems, abstract moral codes, or visions of cosmic justice. Charvaka strips all of that away and focuses on what can be directly observed, tested, and experienced. Fire burns, water refreshes, food nourishes, music delights, pain warns, pleasure rewards. Every insight, every lesson, every piece of knowledge is rooted in reality. There is no reason to believe in anything that cannot be sensed or verified. This insistence on tangible evidence transforms philosophy from theoretical abstraction into a practical tool for living wisely and effectively. Pleasure and desire are central, but Charvaka does not advocate mindless indulgence. The philosophy teaches rational enjoyment. Pursue what increases well-being, avoid what causes harm, and understand the consequences of every choice. Hunger, curiosity, love, companionship, creativity, all these are not obstacles to wisdom, but guides toward it. The body and mind are instruments for engaging with the world. Ignoring them, punishing them, or denying their natural inclinations is irrational. Desire is not sinful, it is informative. By following it intelligently, individuals maximize the quality and richness of life. Charvaka's materialism also reframes ethics and morality. Without gods, karma, or cosmic justice, morality emerges from cause and effect and social interaction. Harm is harmful because it produces suffering. Cooperation is beneficial because it produces advantage. And these observable consequences are sufficient to guide behavior. Ethics becomes pragmatic, relational, and human-centered. Helping others is valuable because it strengthens communities and reduces conflict, not because it earns divine favor. Avoiding harm is sensible because it protects life and well-being, not because it offends some unseen authority. Morality is grounded in reality, not myth. Death is final, consciousness is temporary, and life is finite. Many fear this, but Charvaka transforms it into clarity and motivation. Mortality amplifies the significance of experience and encourages deliberate action. Life is not a rehearsal for an afterlife. It is the only stage, the only opportunity. This perspective shifts priorities dramatically. Time becomes precious, attention becomes focused, and pleasure, learning, and engagement become urgent and essential. Death is not a punishment or a test. It is a limit that makes existence intense, meaningful, and precious. The philosophy challenges ritual, superstition, and authority. Priests and ascetics often control communities through fear, promises of reward, and ritual obligation. Charvaka exposes these mechanisms as manipulation. Rituals have no effect on the invisible world. Obedience does not earn cosmic favor. Only observable outcomes matter. By questioning authority and verifying claims against reality, individuals reclaim control over their choices and beliefs. Freedom is intellectual independence, the ability to think critically, observe accurately, and act in accordance with evidence and self-interest. Charvaka encourages engagement with pleasure, creativity, and knowledge as ends in themselves. Art, music, literature, friendship, love, and intellectual exploration are not distractions from spiritual goals. They are the substance of a meaningful life.
The philosophy teaches that humans can cultivate fulfillment directly without reliance on metaphysical guarantees. Beauty, curiosity, and joy are real phenomena to be appreciated and pursued. Life is finite, but within that finitude lies endless opportunity to explore, learn, create, and enjoy.
The philosophy also fosters personal responsibility. Without belief in cosmic oversight, individuals must own their choices entirely. Mistakes are not forgiven by supernatural forces. Success is not granted by divine grace. Every decision carries real consequences that must be anticipated, understood, and managed. Charvaka transforms existential responsibility from a burden into a tool for empowerment. Knowing that life is finite and consequences are real forces clarity, deliberation, and self-determination. Freedom is inseparable from responsibility. Charvaka promotes rational hedonism, tempered by awareness and foresight. Pleasure is natural, pain is instructive, and life is to be maximized for satisfaction and well-being. Ignoring the body, suppressing desire, or deferring joy to some imagined afterlife is irrational. Living fully requires attention to the present, understanding of consequences, and cultivation of relationships and experiences. The philosophy turns each moment into an opportunity to act wisely, enjoy fully, and think clearly. Charvaka's worldview is liberating and clarifying. It removes fear, superstition, and illusion. It emphasizes observation, reason, and direct experience. Ethics is practical and relational. Pleasure is rational. Death is finite, and knowledge is grounded in reality. The philosophy returns agency to the individual and makes life intensely meaningful. Every experience, every choice, and every pursuit is real and consequential. There is no cosmic judge, no afterlife, no eternal soul. Only humans navigating reality with intelligence, curiosity, and courage. Charvaka teaches that humans must face reality without illusions, which is both frightening and freeing. Most systems cushion existence with supernatural explanations, afterlife rewards, karmic justice, or divine purpose. Charvaka refuses such comforts. It says that life is raw, finite, and real, and the only reliable guide is direct experience. Pain is pain, pleasure is pleasure, death is death, and consciousness arises from the body and ends with it. By stripping away fantasy, Charvaka forces humans to take full ownership of their lives. No excuses, no deferrals, no external validation, just conscious engagement with the present. Pleasure and desire are not obstacles, but signals. Hunger tells the body to eat. Curiosity tells the mind to explore. Attraction tells humans to connect. Creativity tells individuals to express themselves. Ignoring or repressing these signals is irrational. Charvaka's rational hedonism teaches strategic pursuit of satisfaction. Maximize pleasure that enhances life, minimize pain that reduces it, and always consider consequences. Unlike reckless indulgence, this approach requires observation, reasoning, and foresight. Desire becomes a tool for intelligence, not a source of shame or moral guilt. Ethics in Charvaka emerges naturally from cause and effect. Actions are right when they lead to benefit, and wrong when they lead to harm. There is no divine enforcement, no karmic ledger, no cosmic balance sheet. Morality is human, relational, and practical. Cooperation strengthens communities. Avoidance of harm protects life and well-being. Helping others is justified by tangible benefits, not divine approval. Ethics is pragmatic, context-sensitive, and entirely grounded in observable reality. Charvaka's moral framework is therefore both flexible and rigorous, guiding human interaction without reliance on supernatural authority.
Charvaka is brutally honest about mortality. Death ends consciousness. There is no reincarnation, no eternal soul, no afterlife reward or punishment. While this might seem bleak, the philosophy turns it into a source of urgency and freedom. Finite life intensifies every moment. Choices, experiences, relationships, and pleasures gain extraordinary significance. The absence of eternal consequence encourages humans to live deliberately, appreciating the fleeting richness of existence. Death is not an enemy. It is a boundary that gives life meaning and sharpens attention. Charvaka critiques authority and ritualistic control. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often manipulate fear, superstition, and tradition to maintain power. Charvaka exposes these tactics and demands verification through experience. Authority is not proof. Tradition is informative but not decisive. Only evidence counts. Individuals are empowered to challenge orthodoxy, question dogma, and act independently. Intellectual autonomy becomes essential for a life guided by reality, not by manipulation or inherited belief. Freedom is inseparable from skepticism, observation, and reasoning. Charvaka embraces the body as the foundation of consciousness and experience. Unlike spiritual systems that glorify the soul or demonize desire, it treats the body with respect. All sensations, emotions, and thoughts arise from physical processes. Pleasure is natural. Pain is informative. To live fully, one must attend to the body, understand its signals, and use it as a vehicle for engagement with the world. Health, vitality, and satisfaction are not optional, they are central to rational living. Physical reality is not inferior, it is the basis of all experience and meaning.
The philosophy also promotes intellectual independence. Beliefs must withstand scrutiny and be grounded in observation. Dogma, superstition, and blind faith are rejected. Skepticism is not cynicism, it is discipline. One observes, tests, reasons, and chooses based on evidence. This empowers individuals to navigate life without fear of punishment, guilt, or manipulation. Thinking becomes an act of liberation, enabling humans to make decisions that maximize well-being and align with reality. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and human-centered. Charvaka's approach to pleasure, desire, and happiness is profoundly practical. Life is short, experiences are finite, and the body is the instrument of living. Pursuit of joy, intellectual growth, aesthetic appreciation, love, and social connection is rational. Suppression of natural desires, deferral of satisfaction to imaginary rewards, or adherence to rituals that harm or restrict well-being is irrational. Rational engagement with desire, guided by observation and foresight, enables humans to maximize meaningful experiences without self-deception or superstition. The philosophy also redefines courage. True courage is not obedience to gods, fear of punishment, or hope for reward. It is facing life directly and honestly, understanding its risks and limitations, and acting wisely. Courage emerges from clarity, recognizing mortality, rejecting illusions, accepting the body, and taking responsibility for choices. Fear of imaginary consequences is replaced by awareness of tangible risks. Action becomes deliberate, informed, and grounded in reality. Charvaka teaches that freedom without courage is meaningless. Living fully requires both. Charvaka insists that knowledge, ethics, and happiness are human projects. They do not depend on divine oversight, cosmic justice, or metaphysical systems. Knowledge comes from observation and reason. Ethics arises from cause and effect relationships in human interaction.
Happiness emerges from intelligent pursuit of pleasure and avoidance of harm. Mortality sharpens focus. Desire guides action. Social cooperation enhances well-being. Rational engagement with reality is sufficient for living a fulfilled, meaningful life. Charvaka is a philosophy rooted entirely in the human experience, grounded, practical, and liberating. Charvaka teaches that humans must embrace life without deflection. Many philosophies soften reality with promises of reward, punishment, or ultimate justice. Charvaka strips all of that away and demands that humans confront life as it is, finite, real, and tangible. Pain is experienced directly, pleasure is experienced directly, death is experienced directly, and consciousness arises from the body and ends with it. By doing so, it forces individuals to assume full responsibility for their lives. There is no cosmic safety net, no karmic accountant, no invisible supervisor. Life is immediate, and only direct observation and reason can guide action effectively. Pleasure and desire are understood as natural indicators, not temptations to suppress or sins to avoid. Hunger signals the body's need. Curiosity signals the mind's engagement. Attraction signals connection. Creativity signals expression. To ignore these signals is irrational. Charvaka encourages rational enjoyment. Pursue what increases life's quality, avoid what produces harm, and consider the consequences of all actions. This approach is neither reckless indulgence nor denial of reality. Desire is a tool, intelligence is the guide, and conscious action is the path to maximizing life's richness. Ethics emerges from cause and effect observation rather than supernatural command. Harm produces suffering. Cooperation produces advantage. These tangible outcomes are sufficient to guide behavior. Helping others is valuable because it strengthens relationships and communities, not because it earns divine favor. Avoiding harm is wise because it protects well-being, not because it pleases gods. Charvaka morality is pragmatic, human-centered, and context-sensitive. It is a morality of observable consequences, independent of metaphysical claims, fear, or reward. Death is final. Consciousness ceases. There is no afterlife, no reincarnation, no eternal soul. While this truth is stark, Charvaka turns it into motivation and clarity. Life gains urgency and meaning precisely because it is finite. Every experience, every decision, every pleasure and interaction carries weight. Time becomes precious. Awareness of mortality intensifies attention and commitment to the present. Death is not a punishment, it is a natural boundary that enhances life's significance. Mortality becomes a tool for deliberate living, not a source of fear. Charvaka critiques authority, ritual, and superstition. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often manipulate fear, hope, and belief to consolidate power. Charvaka exposes these practices and demands verification through observation and experience. Tradition is informative, but not authoritative. Only claims that can be tested against reality merit belief. This fosters intellectual independence and empowers individuals to make decisions based on evidence, not inherited dogma. Freedom is inseparable from skepticism, reasoning, and observation.
The body is central to Charvaka thought. Consciousness, sensation, and emotion arise from physical processes. The body is not a vessel for an eternal soul. It is the foundation of life and experience. Pleasure is natural, pain is informative, and the body's signals guide intelligent action. Attending to the body, understanding its needs, and respecting its processes are essential for rational living. Physical experience is not secondary. It is the primary medium through which knowledge, enjoyment, and meaning are realized.
Charvaka emphasizes direct engagement with the world. Observation, reason, and experience are the only reliable guides. Myths, rituals, and supernatural claims may entertain, but cannot direct action effectively. Knowledge is practical and actionable, allowing humans to navigate reality, reduce suffering, and enhance pleasure. Every decision is meaningful because consequences are real and humans are responsible for managing them. Charvaka transforms philosophy into a guide for intelligent, evidence-based living rather than spiritual speculation. The philosophy encourages rational hedonism. Pleasure is a natural goal. Pain is a guide to avoid harm, and life is to be engaged fully. Ignoring desires, deferring joy, or following ritualistic commands that produce no real benefit is irrational. Rational engagement with sensation, curiosity, creativity, and social interaction leads to fulfillment. Life is finite, but within that finitude lies the opportunity to cultivate joy, knowledge, and connection. Charvaka turns immediacy into value, mortality into intensity, and human experience into the ultimate guide for living. Charvaka also reframes courage. True courage is not obedience to gods or fear of punishment. It is honest confrontation with reality, understanding mortality, rejecting illusions, and taking full responsibility for choices. Fear is replaced by awareness of tangible risks. Action is deliberate, informed, and aligned with evidence. Courage in Charvaka is the ability to live fully, think clearly, and act wisely without reliance on supernatural assurances. Charvaka restores agency, autonomy, and clarity to human life. Knowledge is grounded in observation, ethics in practical consequences, pleasure in rational enjoyment, death in finality, and life in engagement with reality. There is no external arbiter, no cosmic reward, no spiritual narrative. Everything that matters is human, tangible, and observable. Life is finite, decisions are consequential, and happiness is created here and now. Charvaka is a philosophy of liberation, rationality, and full-bodied living, returning power and meaning to the individual without illusion. Charvaka makes it clear that human beings must rely on their own senses and reasoning to understand the world. Faith alone, tradition alone, or authority alone cannot provide reliable knowledge. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell are the tools through which reality is comprehended. The philosophy teaches constant vigilance, verify claims, test ideas, and reject those unsupported by experience. This epistemic rigor is liberating because it frees individuals from fear of superstition and manipulation. It replaces blind obedience with critical thinking, skepticism, and practical insight. Pleasure is natural and informative. Charvaka insists that the body's signals, hunger, thirst, sexual desire, curiosity, should not be ignored or suppressed unnecessarily. Ignoring these leads to suffering and imbalance. Yet pleasure is to be pursued with reason. Reckless indulgence is harmful. Excessive restraint is unnecessary. Rational enjoyment requires understanding consequences, weighing options, and making informed choices. Desire is a compass guiding humans toward fulfilling experiences, not a vice or obstacle. Life becomes a dynamic interaction between natural inclinations and rational management of outcomes. Charvaka also rejects metaphysical morality and divine law. Right and wrong are derived from observable effects. Harm produces pain. Cooperation produces benefit. There is no supernatural enforcement, no karmic accounting, no divine punishment. Ethics is therefore practical, human-centered, and grounded in the material world. One should act to maximize well-being, avoid suffering, and foster cooperation. Morality is flexible, context-sensitive, and rooted in experience. Charvaka's moral philosophy turns observable reality into the basis for ethical decisions rather than imaginary constructs. Death is final. Consciousness ceases. There is no afterlife or reincarnation. For Charvaka, this is not depressing. It is clarifying. Mortality adds urgency and significance to life. Every action, decision, and experience matter precisely because they are finite. Death is the boundary that gives life focus, meaning, and intensity. By accepting finality, humans are encouraged to live deliberately, to engage fully with the body, the senses, relationships, and experiences. Life's brevity becomes a motivator to act wisely, enjoy meaningfully, and pursue knowledge actively.
Charvaka critiques authority, ritual, and institutionalized belief. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often manipulate fear and hope to control populations. Charvaka exposes these tactics and insists that evidence must govern belief. Tradition is useful only when verified through observation. Authority carries no automatic truth. Beliefs should be adopted only after testing against reality. This cultivates intellectual independence, empowering individuals to make decisions based on evidence and reason rather than inherited dogma or social pressure. Freedom and rationality are inseparable. The philosophy emphasizes the body as the foundation of all experience. Sensation, thought, and consciousness arise from physical processes. The body is not a vessel for a soul or a testing ground for spiritual ideals. It is the medium through which reality is engaged. Pleasure is natural, pain is informative, and understanding bodily needs is essential for rational living. The philosophy encourages respecting the body, cultivating health, and using it wisely as the instrument of action, perception, and experience. Charvaka stresses the importance of direct engagement with the world. Observation, reasoning, and experience are the only reliable guides. Myths, rituals, and metaphysical speculation may provide stories, but they do not inform action reliably. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and grounded in reality. Every choice has tangible consequences, and individuals must navigate these with clarity and intelligence. Philosophy becomes a guide for living, not a speculation about invisible realms or untestable claims. Charvaka promotes rational hedonism, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, and living fully within the constraints of reality. Life is finite, experience is limited, and desire is informative. Pleasure should be pursued intelligently. Harm should be avoided. Experiences should be maximized within reason. This approach is neither ascetic nor reckless. It is pragmatic, balanced, and fully engaged with the material world. Rational enjoyment transforms life from survival into fulfillment. Courage in Charvaka is the ability to face reality without illusions. True bravery comes from understanding mortality, rejecting supernatural fear, and assuming responsibility for one's choices. Action is deliberate, informed, and aligned with reason. Fear of imaginary consequences is replaced by awareness of tangible risks. Courage allows individuals to live fully, think clearly, and act wisely. It is inseparable from intellectual clarity and engagement with reality. Charvaka restores agency and clarity. Knowledge is grounded in observation, ethics in practical consequences, pleasure in rational pursuit, and life in direct engagement with the world.
There is no cosmic judge, no afterlife, no mystical authority. All meaningful action occurs here, and humans are fully responsible for their choices. Life is finite, experiences are real, and happiness is created through conscious engagement. Charvaka is a philosophy of freedom, rationality, and human-centered fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating the tangible richness of life. Charvaka emphasizes that humans must approach life without reliance on myths or imagined powers. Many traditions tell people that invisible forces govern the world, or that moral debts are tracked by supernatural entities. Charvaka rejects this entirely. Reality is governed by natural causes and effects, observable phenomena, and human actions. Nothing exists outside what can be sensed or inferred from experience. By insisting on this, Charvaka forces individuals to assume full responsibility for understanding, navigating, and improving their lives. There is no cosmic hand guiding events, there is only human perception, reasoning, and action. Pleasure and desire are central indicators, not obstacles to wisdom. Hunger, thirst, curiosity, attraction, and creativity all provide information about needs and opportunities. Charvaka teaches that these signals should be acknowledged and acted upon rationally. Pursuit of pleasure is not indulgence if it enhances well-being. Avoidance of pain is not weakness if it preserves life and health. Every choice is evaluated for its real-world consequences. Rational management of desire turns life into a disciplined engagement with experience, maximizing fulfillment while minimizing suffering. Ethics emerges naturally from human interaction and observable outcomes. Harm is harmful because it causes pain. Cooperation is beneficial because it produces advantage. There is no supernatural enforcement, no karmic bookkeeping, and no divine reward. Ethics is pragmatic and situational, based on cause and effect, social consequences, and human welfare. Helping others is justified by its tangible benefits. Avoiding harm is wise because it prevents suffering. Charvaka's ethical system is practical, human-centered, and adaptable, offering guidance grounded in reality rather than dogma.
Death is absolute. Consciousness ends when the body dies. There is no reincarnation, no immortal soul, no posthumous reward or punishment. This reality is not cause for despair. It is a call to live fully. Finite life intensifies the significance of every action, thought, and experience. Mortality motivates attention, engagement, and deliberate living. Life gains urgency because it will not last. Each moment becomes meaningful. Charvaka transforms the inevitability of death into a source of empowerment and clarity rather than fear or guilt. Charvaka critiques rituals, superstitions, and authority that manipulate fear or hope. Priests, rulers, and social institutions often enforce obedience through promises of supernatural reward or threats of punishment. Charvaka exposes these mechanisms as manipulative. Only observable effects and rational analysis determine what is worth believing or practicing. Tradition is informative, but not authoritative. Freedom comes from skepticism, testing, and evidence-based decision-making. Intellectual independence is essential to live a life guided by reality, not manipulation or inherited belief. The philosophy places the body at the center of experience. Mind, emotion, and consciousness arise from physical processes. They are not separate entities. Pleasure is natural, pain is informative, and physical needs guide action. Life is lived through the body, and attending to its signals, health, and well-being is fundamental to rational existence. Sensory experience is primary, not secondary. Through understanding the body and its responses, humans navigate the world effectively, enjoy life fully, and avoid harm. The material is sufficient for knowledge, morality, and fulfillment. Charvaka emphasizes direct engagement with reality. Observation, reason, and empirical verification are the only reliable guides. Supernatural claims, mystical narratives, or ritualistic prescriptions may exist, but they cannot direct action effectively unless verified. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and grounded in experience. Life is a series of decisions and interactions, each with consequences that must be understood and managed. Philosophy, for Charvaka, is a tool for intelligent living, not a speculation about hidden realms. Rational hedonism is central. Life is finite, pleasure is natural, desire is informative. Rational pursuit of satisfaction and avoidance of harm maximizes the quality of life. This does not justify reckless indulgence, nor does it demand ascetic suppression. Rational enjoyment involves foresight, observation, and understanding. Desire is a guide, intelligence is the navigator, and conscious action is the method. Charvaka transforms pleasure into a disciplined, intelligent pursuit that enhances life rather than undermines it. Courage, in Charvaka, is facing life clearly and responsibly. True bravery is not compliance with divine authority or fear of punishment. It is acceptance of mortality, rejection of illusion, and assumption of responsibility for choices. Awareness of tangible risks replaces fear of imaginary consequences. Action becomes deliberate, informed, and guided by reason. Courage allows humans to live fully, think clearly, and act decisively. Freedom is inseparable from the capacity to act wisely in a world governed by observable reality. Charvaka restores agency and empowerment to human life. Knowledge is grounded in observation, ethics in practical consequences, pleasure in rational engagement, and action in deliberate choice. There is no supernatural arbiter, no afterlife, no mystical authority. Life is finite, real, and fully human. Experiences are meaningful because they are tangible, and happiness is created through conscious engagement with the world. Charvaka is a philosophy of clarity, freedom, rationality, and the human-centered pursuit of fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating reality. Charvaka emphasizes that humans must trust their senses and reasoning above all else. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell are the only tools capable of providing reliable knowledge. Beliefs and claims must be verified against direct experience. Authority, tradition, and texts carry no inherent truth unless their assertions can be observed and tested. This insistence on empirical validation cultivates intellectual independence, freeing individuals from manipulation by superstition, dogma, or fear-based control. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and grounded in reality, allowing humans to navigate life effectively and responsibly. Pleasure and desire are not obstacles, but informative guides. Hunger, curiosity, sexual attraction, and creativity signal needs and opportunities. Charvaka teaches that these natural inclinations should be acknowledged and pursued rationally. Pleasure is not indulgence if it enhances life, and pain is not merely suffering, but a warning system guiding avoidance of harm. Rational enjoyment balances desire with foresight and consequence. It turns human inclination into a tool for maximizing life's richness rather than a source of guilt, restriction, or fear.
Ethics emerges from observable consequences and relational dynamics. Actions are right if they reduce harm and increase benefit, wrong if they produce suffering or dysfunction. There is no cosmic oversight, no karmic ledger, no divine reward. Morality is pragmatic and grounded in the real world. Cooperation strengthens communities. Avoidance of harm preserves well-being, and helping others is justified by tangible benefit. Charvaka morality is flexible, human-centered, and evidence-based, relying entirely on practical outcomes rather than dogmatic rules or supernatural mandates. Death is absolute, and consciousness ends with the body. This is not despairing, but clarifying. Mortality intensifies the significance of each experience, decision, and interaction. Life is finite, making presence, awareness, and engagement urgent. The absence of an afterlife or eternal soul frees humans from deferral of joy or moral obligation to unseen forces. Each moment becomes valuable, and experiences gain intensity. Charvaka critiques ritual, superstition, and social control. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often enforce obedience through fear of punishment or promises of reward. Charvaka exposes these tactics as manipulative. Only evidence and observation determine what is true and actionable. Tradition can be informative, but is not automatically authoritative. Skepticism, rational verification, and critical thinking become essential tools. Intellectual freedom empowers individuals to make decisions based on reality, not inherited belief or social pressure. Knowledge, ethics, and action are restored to human responsibility. The body is central to Charvaka philosophy. Consciousness, thought, and emotion arise from physical processes. The body is not a vessel for an eternal soul. It is the medium through which all experience occurs. Sensation guides behavior. Pleasure signals benefit. Pain signals harm. Understanding and attending to bodily needs is essential for rational living. Physical reality is sufficient for meaning, knowledge, and fulfillment. The philosophy celebrates the primacy of material existence and encourages intelligent engagement with bodily and sensory experience. Direct observation and reasoning are the primary tools for navigating reality. Myths, rituals, and supernatural claims may provide stories, but they cannot reliably guide action. Knowledge is practical and actionable. Every decision has consequences that must be understood and managed. Charvaka turns philosophy into a tool for intelligent, grounded living, rather than speculation about invisible or untestable realms. Life becomes a series of choices informed by evidence, experience, and foresight. Rational hedonism is central. Pleasure is natural. Pain is informative. Life is finite, and desire is a guide. Pursuit of satisfaction must be intelligent and measured, maximizing benefit while minimizing harm. This is neither ascetic nor reckless indulgence. Pleasure becomes rational, desire becomes instructive, and action becomes deliberate. Life is understood and optimized in terms of tangible outcomes. Rational enjoyment transforms life from mere survival into purposeful fulfillment. Courage is facing reality honestly and responsibly. Bravery is not compliance with divine authority or fear of punishment, but acceptance of mortality, rejection of illusions, and full assumption of responsibility for choices. Fear is replaced with awareness of real risks. Action is deliberate, informed, and guided by reason. Courage allows humans to live fully, act decisively, and navigate life without reliance on supernatural assurances or false comforts. Charvaka restores clarity, agency, and empowerment to human existence. Knowledge comes from observation, ethics from consequences, pleasure from rational engagement, and life from deliberate action. There is no cosmic arbiter, no afterlife, no mystical authority. Life is finite, reality is tangible, and human agency is central. Experiences are meaningful because they are real, and happiness is created through conscious interaction with the world. Charvaka is a philosophy of freedom, rationality, and grounded human fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating the tangible, finite, and fully human. Charvaka insists that humans must approach existence without relying on supernatural explanations. Myths, Divine authority and spiritual doctrines may offer comfort or tradition, but they do not reliably guide action. Reality is governed by observable causes and effects, and the only trustworthy knowledge comes from experience and reason. This insistence on evidence empowers individuals to make choices with clarity and confidence. Superstition, fear of punishment, or hope for reward in an unseen realm is irrelevant to rational living. Life is immediate, finite, and entirely human, and philosophy exists to navigate it wisely.
Pleasure and desire are treated as natural signals, not temptations to be suppressed. Hunger indicates bodily need. Curiosity drives intellectual exploration. Attraction fosters connection, and creativity signals expression. Charvaka teaches that fulfilling these desires rationally enhances life, rather than diminishes it. Yet pleasure must be pursued with awareness of consequences. Reckless indulgence may bring harm, while unnecessary deprivation limits life's richness. Rational engagement with desire transforms human instinct into a tool for intelligent, full-bodied living. Ethics in Charvaka emerges from practical observation. Actions are judged by their tangible outcomes. Harm leads to suffering. Cooperation produces benefit. Morality is human-centered, flexible, and grounded in reality. Helping others strengthens social bonds and reduces conflict, not to earn divine favor, but because it produces tangible benefit. Avoiding harm protects well-being and stability. Supernatural enforcement is unnecessary. Observable consequences are sufficient to guide rational ethical behavior. Charvaka's morality is practical, evidence-based, and directly connected to human experience. Death is inevitable, and consciousness ceases with the body. Charvaka transforms this reality into a source of clarity and urgency. Mortality makes every choice significant. Life is finite, so attention, engagement, and awareness are essential. Without belief in reincarnation, eternal souls, or divine judgment, humans are freed from deferred obligation and focus entirely on maximizing real, present life fulfillment. Death is not a threat, it is the natural boundary that sharpens perception, enhances appreciation, and motivates deliberate, meaningful action. Charvaka challenges ritualistic and institutional authority. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often control people through fear, superstition, or promises of posthumous reward. Charvaka exposes these systems as manipulative. Knowledge and belief must be grounded in evidence and experience. Tradition can inform, but it does not dictate truth. Rational verification is essential. Intellectual independence becomes both a moral and practical necessity, empowering humans to make decisions based on reality, not inherited dogma or social pressure. Freedom is inseparable from reason and skepticism. The body is central to Charvaka thought. Consciousness, sensation, and emotion arise from material processes. The body is not a vessel for a soul, it is the foundation of experience. Pleasure signals benefit, pain signals danger, and attending to bodily needs is essential for rational living. Physical reality is sufficient for understanding, morality, and fulfillment. By respecting and engaging with the body intelligently, humans can maximize both well-being and knowledge. Life is experienced through the body, and Charvaka places this fact at the center of philosophy. Direct engagement with the world is a core principle. Observation, reasoning, and empirical verification are the only reliable guides. Myths, rituals, and supernatural claims may exist, but they cannot effectively inform action unless grounded in reality. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and human-centered. Life consists of decisions, interactions, and consequences, all requiring clear perception, careful evaluation, and rational action. Philosophy becomes a tool for intelligent living rather than speculation about invisible realms or metaphysical abstractions. Rational hedonism guides life.
Pleasure is natural, pain is informative, and life is finite. Rational pursuit of satisfaction, avoidance of harm, and attention to consequence maximize the quality of existence. This approach is neither ascetic nor reckless indulgence. Desire is instructive, intelligence is the navigator, and action is deliberate. Rational enjoyment transforms existence from mere survival into a life of fulfillment, insight, and engagement. Charvaka prioritizes tangible present-life happiness over imaginary spiritual reward. Courage in Charvaka is facing reality honestly. Bravery is not compliance with divine command or fear of punishment. It is acceptance of mortality, rejection of illusions, and full responsibility for choices. Awareness of real risks replaces fear of imaginary consequences. Action is deliberate, informed, and guided by reason. Courage allows humans to live fully, act decisively, and navigate life without dependence on supernatural assurances. Freedom and clarity are inseparable from courage. Charvaka restores human agency and clarity. Knowledge comes from observation, ethics from consequences, pleasure from rational pursuit, and action from deliberate engagement. There is no cosmic arbiter, no afterlife, no mystical authority. Life is finite, reality is tangible, and human agency is central. Experiences are meaningful because they are real, and happiness is cultivated through conscious engagement with the world. Charvaka is a philosophy of freedom, reason, and grounded human fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating reality in its most direct and human-centered form.
Charvaka underscores the necessity of direct experience as the foundation of understanding. Human beings must rely on observation and reason to comprehend reality. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell are the only reliable means of accessing truth. Beliefs based solely on authority, tradition, or scripture are insufficient unless they align with experience. This emphasis on empirical verification cultivates independent thinking, empowering individuals to act with clarity and avoid manipulation by superstition, dogma, or fear-based social control. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and grounded in reality. Pleasure and desire serve as natural guides to well-being. Hunger, curiosity, attraction, and creativity indicate needs, opportunities, and areas for engagement. Charvaka encourages pursuing these desires rationally, ensuring that satisfaction does not produce harm. Rational enjoyment balances instinct with foresight, turning desire into an instrument for intelligent living. Pleasure is not indulgence if it enhances life. Pain is not mere suffering, but a warning to avoid harm. Life becomes a dynamic interplay between natural inclinations and informed, deliberate action. Ethics in Charvaka emerges from observing the consequences of actions. Harm produces suffering. Cooperation produces benefit. Morality is pragmatic, flexible, and grounded in human experience. Helping others is justified because it strengthens communities and enhances collective well-being, not because of divine reward. Avoiding harm preserves life and reduces conflict. Supernatural oversight is unnecessary. Tangible outcomes guide moral reasoning. Charvaka's ethics is evidence-based, human-centered, and adaptable to real-life situations, relying on practical experience rather than dogma. Death is absolute, and consciousness ends with the body. This reality, rather than causing despair, provides clarity and focus. Mortality makes every action, decision, and experience significant. Life is finite, urging awareness, deliberate engagement, and full appreciation of each moment. With no belief in reincarnation or eternal souls, humans are freed from deferred obligations and can focus on creating meaning and happiness in the present. Mortality transforms urgency into opportunity, motivating a life rich in experience, learning, and enjoyment. Charvaka critiques rituals, superstition, and hierarchical control. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often exploit fear and hope to maintain authority. Charvaka exposes these manipulations, insisting that beliefs and actions must be grounded in observation and evidence. Tradition can inform, but does not dictate truth. Rational verification and critical thinking are essential for intellectual freedom. Individuals empowered to reason independently can make choices aligned with reality rather than inherited dogma or social pressure. Freedom and rationality are inseparable in human life. The body is the foundation of all experience. Consciousness, emotion, and thought arise from physical processes. The body is not a vessel for an eternal soul. It is the medium through which life is experienced. Sensation guides behavior. Pleasure signals benefit. Pain signals harm. Understanding and attending to the body is essential for rational living. Physical experience provides sufficient basis for knowledge, morality, and fulfillment. By embracing the body intelligently, humans maximize well-being, perception, and engagement with reality. Charvaka emphasizes active engagement with the material world. Observation, reasoning, and empirical evidence are the only reliable tools for navigating life. Myths, rituals, and supernatural claims may provide stories, but they do not reliably inform decisions unless verified. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and human-centered. Life consists of choices and interactions with real consequences, requiring clarity, foresight, and intelligence. Philosophy becomes a tool for intelligent living rather than speculative metaphysics. Rational hedonism guides existence. Life is finite, desire is natural, pleasure is informative, pain is instructive. Rational pursuit of satisfaction and avoidance of harm maximize the quality of life. This balance is neither reckless indulgence nor ascetic suppression. Desire is instructive, intelligence navigates action, and experience is maximized deliberately. Rational enjoyment transforms survival into purposeful, engaging, and fulfilling living. Charvaka places tangible, immediate experience at the center of human flourishing. Courage, according to Charvaka, is facing reality without illusions. Bravery is not compliance with authority or fear of divine punishment. It is acceptance of mortality, rejection of superstition, and ownership of choices. Awareness of real risks replaces fear of imagined consequences. Actions are deliberate, informed, and guided by reason. Courage allows humans to live fully, think clearly, and act decisively. Freedom is inseparable from the ability to confront reality with clarity and responsibility.
Charvaka restores agency, clarity, and empowerment to human existence. Knowledge arises from observation, ethics from consequences, pleasure from rational pursuit, and life from deliberate engagement. There is no cosmic arbiter, no afterlife, no mystical authority. Life is finite, real, and fully human. Experiences are meaningful because they are tangible, and happiness is created through conscious interaction with the world. Charvaka is a philosophy of freedom, rationality, and grounded human fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating reality and the human-centered pursuit of well-being. Charvaka emphasizes that humans must base all knowledge on sensory experience and reason. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell are the only reliable sources of truth. Beliefs inherited from tradition, authority, or scripture must be verified against what can be observed. This insistence on evidence fosters independent thinking and frees individuals from manipulation by superstition, dogma, or fear. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and grounded in reality, enabling humans to navigate life wisely and effectively. Nothing unseen or untested can serve as a reliable guide for action. Pleasure and desire are not obstacles, but indicators of human needs and opportunities. Hunger signals bodily necessity. Curiosity drives intellectual growth. Attraction fosters relationships, and creativity motivates expression. Charvaka teaches that these natural inclinations should be pursued rationally, ensuring that pleasure enhances life without causing harm. Rational enjoyment balances instinct with foresight. Desire is a tool for intelligent living, guiding action in ways that maximize fulfillment and minimize suffering. Pain is not punishment, but a warning to avoid harm and correct misjudgment. Ethics in Charvaka emerges from cause and effect observation. Actions are right when they produce benefit, wrong when they produce harm. Morality is pragmatic, human-centered, and grounded in observable consequences. Helping others strengthens communities and reduces conflict, not to gain divine favor, but because it produces real, tangible results. Avoiding harm preserves life and well-being. Supernatural oversight is unnecessary. Practical outcomes are sufficient to guide ethical behavior. Charvaka's morality is flexible, evidence-based, and rooted in human experience rather than dogma. Death is absolute, and consciousness ends with the body. Charvaka transforms this reality into motivation and clarity. Mortality makes every decision, experience, and interaction meaningful. Life is finite, emphasizing deliberate attention, engagement, and presence. Without belief in reincarnation, eternal souls, or divine judgment, humans are freed from deferred obligations. Life is to be lived fully and intentionally. Death is not a threat. It is the boundary that intensifies perception, appreciation, and deliberate action. Mortality converts urgency into opportunity for learning, enjoyment, and meaningful engagement. Charvaka critiques ritual, superstition, and social manipulation. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often maintain control through fear, promise of reward, or tradition. Charvaka exposes these as instruments of manipulation. Beliefs and actions must be grounded in observation and reason. Tradition may inform, but it does not dictate truth. Rational verification and critical thinking are essential. Intellectual freedom empowers humans to act in alignment with reality rather than inherited dogma. Freedom, reason, and skepticism are inseparable, forming the foundation for human agency and responsibility. The body is central to Charvaka thought. Consciousness, thought, and emotion arise from material processes. The body is not a vessel for an eternal soul. It is the medium through which all experience occurs. Pleasure signals benefit. Pain signals danger. And understanding the body is essential for rational living. Physical experience alone provides sufficient foundation for knowledge, morality, and fulfillment. By attending intelligently to the body, humans maximize well-being, perception, and engagement with the world. The material is sufficient for life's understanding and enjoyment.
Courage, according to Charvaka, is facing life with clarity and responsibility. Bravery is not obedience to authority or fear of divine punishment. It is acceptance of mortality, rejection of illusion, and full ownership of decisions. Awareness of real risks replaces fear of imagined consequences. Actions are deliberate, informed, and reasoned. Courage enables humans to live fully, think clearly, and act decisively. Freedom is inseparable from the capacity to confront reality intelligently and responsibly. Charvaka restores clarity, agency, and empowerment to human existence. Knowledge arises from observation, ethics from consequences, pleasure from rational pursuit, and life from deliberate engagement. There is no cosmic judge, no afterlife, no mystical authority. Life is finite, tangible, and human-centered. Experiences are meaningful because they are real, and happiness is created through conscious engagement. Charvaka is a philosophy of freedom, rationality, and grounded human fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating the richness and immediacy of reality.
Charvaka insists that humans must trust sensory experience as the ultimate source of knowledge. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell are the tools through which reality is accessed and understood. Claims derived from authority, scripture, or tradition must be verified against what can be observed. Blind faith or inherited belief is insufficient. This reliance on empirical evidence fosters intellectual independence, freeing individuals from manipulation by superstition, dogma, or fear. Knowledge becomes actionable, practical, and grounded in reality, enabling humans to navigate life effectively. Pleasure and desire are fundamental indicators of human needs and opportunities. Hunger signals bodily necessity. Curiosity drives exploration. Attraction fosters connection, and creativity promotes expression. Charvaka emphasizes pursuing these desires rationally, ensuring that fulfillment enhances life rather than causing harm. Rational enjoyment balances instinct with foresight. Desire becomes a tool for intelligent living, while pain functions as a guide, warning against harmful actions. Life is a dynamic interaction between natural inclinations and deliberate, informed choices, turning experience into wisdom. Ethics arises naturally from cause and effect relationships. Actions that produce benefit are right. Actions that produce harm are wrong. Morality is pragmatic, human-centered, and grounded in observable outcomes. Helping others strengthens relationships and communities, not to gain divine favor, but because it produces tangible advantages. Avoiding harm preserves well-being and prevents suffering. Supernatural oversight is unnecessary. Ethics is evidence-based and adaptable, rooted in human experience rather than ritual or dogma. Charvaka transforms morality into a rational, practical framework for everyday life. Death is final, and consciousness ends with the body. Charvaka turns this stark reality into motivation and clarity. Mortality makes every choice, interaction, and experience meaningful. Life is finite, so deliberate engagement, attention, and presence are essential. With no belief in reincarnation, eternal souls, or posthumous reward, humans are freed from deferral of happiness or moral obligation. Life is to be lived fully here and now. Death is not an enemy. It is the natural boundary that sharpens perception, intensifies experience, and motivates purposeful action. Charvaka critiques ritual, superstition, and hierarchical authority. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often manipulate fear and hope to maintain control. Charvaka exposes these mechanisms as tools of manipulation. Beliefs and actions must be grounded in observation, reason, and evidence. Tradition may inform, but it does not dictate truth. Rational verification is essential. Intellectual independence enables humans to make choices based on reality, not inherited dogma or social pressure. Freedom, skepticism, and reasoning are inseparable, forming the foundation of responsible human agency. The body is central to Charvaka philosophy. Consciousness, thought, and emotion arise from physical processes. The body is not a vessel for an eternal soul. It is the medium through which all experience occurs. Pleasure signals benefit, pain signals harm, and attending to bodily needs is essential for rational living. Physical experience alone provides sufficient foundation for knowledge, morality, and fulfillment. By respecting and engaging with the body intelligently, humans maximize well-being, perception, and engagement with the world. Material reality is sufficient for understanding life and creating meaning. Direct engagement with the world is key. Observation, reasoning, and empirical verification are the only reliable guides. Myths, Rituals and supernatural claims may exist culturally, but cannot reliably inform decisions unless grounded in experience. Knowledge is practical and actionable. Life consists of choices and interactions with tangible consequences. Clarity, foresight, and rational decision-making become essential. Philosophy becomes a tool for living wisely, navigating reality, and creating fulfillment, rather than speculating about invisible or untestable realms.
Rational hedonism is a cornerstone. Life is finite, pleasure is natural, desire is informative, and pain is instructive. Pursuit of satisfaction, guided by intelligence, maximizes life quality. This approach avoids both reckless indulgence and ascetic suppression. Desire instructs, intelligence navigates, and action is deliberate. Rational enjoyment transforms existence from survival into engaged, fulfilling, and meaningful life. Charvaka emphasizes immediate, tangible experience over imaginary spiritual reward, placing human flourishing at the center. Courage in Charvaka is facing reality honestly and responsibly. Bravery is not compliance with divine authority or fear of punishment. It is acceptance of mortality, rejection of illusions, and full ownership of decisions. Awareness of real risks replaces fear of imaginary consequences. Actions are deliberate, informed, and guided by reason. Courage allows humans to live fully, think clearly, and act decisively. Freedom is inseparable from the ability to confront life intelligently, responsibly, and without reliance on supernatural assurances. Charvaka restores agency, clarity, and empowerment. Knowledge arises from observation, ethics from consequences, pleasure from rational pursuit, and life from deliberate engagement. There is no cosmic judge, no afterlife, no mystical authority. Life is finite, tangible, and fully human. Experiences are meaningful because they are real, and happiness is cultivated through conscious interaction with the world. Charvaka is a philosophy of freedom, rationality, and grounded human fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating reality in its most direct and human-centered form. Charvaka emphasizes that humans must always rely on evidence and sensory perception to understand reality. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell are the only tools capable of providing reliable knowledge. Assertions based on authority, scripture, or tradition must be confirmed against direct experience. Blind faith or inherited belief is insufficient. By prioritizing observation and reason, Charvaka cultivates intellectual independence, empowering individuals to make informed decisions, avoid manipulation, and navigate life with clarity. Reality is tangible, verifiable, and fully accessible to human inquiry. Pleasure and desire are not weaknesses. They are natural indicators of need and opportunity. Hunger signals the body's requirements. Curiosity drives learning. Attraction fosters relationships, and creativity inspires expression. Charvaka teaches that these inclinations should be fulfilled rationally, ensuring that pursuing them enhances life rather than causing harm. Rational engagement with desire allows humans to optimize their experience. Pain is not punishment. It is a signal to correct missteps and avoid harm. Desire becomes a tool for living wisely, balancing instinct with foresight and intelligence. Ethics arises from practical observation and consequence. Actions are right if they reduce suffering and promote benefit. They are wrong if they produce harm. Morality is grounded in human experience, pragmatic, and context-sensitive. Helping others strengthens communities and creates tangible advantages, not to earn divine reward. Avoiding harm preserves well-being and reduces suffering. Supernatural enforcement is unnecessary. Charvaka's moral system is evidence-based, human-centered, and adaptable, offering guidance rooted in observable reality rather than speculative or ritualistic ideals. Death is final, and consciousness ceases with the body. Charvaka reframes this reality as a clarifying and motivating force.
Mortality makes every choice, interaction, and moment significant. Life is finite, emphasizing the need for presence, engagement, and conscious decision-making. Without belief in reincarnation or eternal souls, humans are freed from deferred obligation and can focus on maximizing happiness and meaning here and now. Death is not a threat. It is the boundary that sharpens perception, intensifies experience, and motivates purposeful, fully lived action. Charvaka critiques ritual, superstition, and institutionalized authority. Priests, ascetics, and rulers often manipulate fear and hope to maintain control. Charvaka exposes these mechanisms as instruments of social manipulation. Beliefs must be grounded in observation and reason. Tradition can inform, but does not dictate truth. Rational verification and critical thinking are essential for intellectual freedom. Individuals empowered to reason independently can act in alignment with reality rather than inherited dogma or societal pressure. Freedom and rationality are inseparable and essential for responsible human agency. The body is central to human experience. Consciousness, thought, and emotion arise from material processes. The body is not a vessel for an eternal soul. It is the medium through which life is experienced. Pleasure signals benefit, pain signals harm, and attending to bodily needs is essential for rational living. Physical experience provides a sufficient foundation for knowledge, morality, and fulfillment. By respecting and engaging intelligently with the body, humans maximize well-being, perception, and interaction with the world. Charvaka celebrates material reality as sufficient for meaningful existence.
Direct engagement with the world is critical. Observation, reasoning, and empirical verification are the only reliable guides. Myths, rituals, and supernatural claims may exist culturally, but they cannot reliably inform action unless tested. Knowledge is practical, actionable, and human-centered. Life consists of decisions, interactions, and consequences, all requiring clarity, insight, and rational evaluation. Philosophy becomes a tool for intelligent living rather than speculative metaphysics or reliance on untestable claims. Rational hedonism guides existence. Life is finite, pleasure is natural, desire is instructive, pain is informative. Rational pursuit of satisfaction and avoidance of harm optimize life quality. This approach balances instinct and reason, avoiding both reckless indulgence and ascetic deprivation. Desire informs, intelligence navigates, and action is deliberate. Rational enjoyment transforms life from mere survival into engaged, meaningful, and fulfilling existence. Charvaka prioritizes immediate, tangible experience over imaginary spiritual reward, placing human flourishing at the center. Courage in Charvaka is facing reality with honesty and responsibility. Bravery is not compliance with divine command or fear of punishment. It is acceptance of mortality, rejection of illusion, and full ownership of decisions. Awareness of real risks replaces fear of imagined consequences. Actions are deliberate, informed, and reasoned. Courage allows humans to live fully, think clearly, and act decisively. Freedom is inseparable from the capacity to confront reality intelligently and responsibly. Charvaka restores clarity, agency, and empowerment to human life. Knowledge arises from observation, ethics from consequence, pleasure from rational pursuit, and life from deliberate engagement. There is no cosmic arbiter, no afterlife, no mystical authority. Life is finite, real, and fully human. Experiences are meaningful because they are tangible, and happiness is cultivated through conscious interaction with the world. Charvaka is a philosophy of freedom, reason, and grounded fulfillment, rejecting illusion while celebrating reality, the body, and human-centered living.